Hey there, hello from beautiful Bend, Oregon. I want to make you this short video in case you have ever felt frustrated with the prospect of trying to build a cash flowing portfolio. Okay, I want to give you an analogy. I've given this analogy to other people and they said it's helpful, so I'm hoping it will be helpful for you as well. So let's say you want to have a cash flowing portfolio of properties so that you can be financially free. Awesome. I think we can probably all relate to that. And I want you to think of that like a plate full of cookies. Okay, let's say it's 10 cookies. Each cookie represents a cash flowing property, and you want $10,000 a month globally in your portfolio of net cash flow. So each cookie represents $1,000 of net cash flow. So you get all inspired by this vision. You're like, I'm going to achieve this financial freedom. I'm going to start putting cookies on the platter, on the plate. And so what do? Well, most people, they go out and they start trying to get the first cookie. How do I find and finance this cookie? Let me put myself in a position to buy this cookie. I have to find it, I have to negotiate it. The numbers have to work. I've got my standards and my criteria, and that's all good. And you go out and you buy a cookie and you put it on the plate and you look at it and you're like, sweet. I want, one down, 9 to go. This is great. And then, you start looking for the second cookie as soon as you're ready, but maybe it takes a little bit of time to get ready. You're having trouble perhaps finding properties that kind of meet your definition of like what's a good enough cookie, what's sufficient cash flow. You have maybe cash on cash return or cash flow per unit kind of a metric maybe, and maybe you're having trouble finding those. Maybe you can find those in your market, but you're not in a spot anymore like where you got the cash to do it or the credit to do it or whatever, and you start trying to put that second cookie on the plate, or the third or the fifth or the sixth or whatever, and you're like, God, it's a little bit tedious. It feels like a little discouraging. And that's one way to do it, but there is another way to sort of think about it. What if you were to not worry about cookies, but instead focus on ingredients? Okay, so what are the ingredients of cookies? Well, flour, sugar, eggs, chocolate chips, maybe vanilla, oil, whatever. What are the ingredients to a great cash flowing portfolio? Well, great properties, first of all. Probably great blocks of affordable, advantageous debt, maybe very flexible debt perhaps, but low interest, that kind of thing. Equity would be good in a cash flowing portfolio. Liquid equity, like cash on hand, actual cash flow from the properties, from these great properties. So there's all these ingredients that you need to have a cash flowing portfolio. So what if instead of trying to buy a cash flowing property, a cookie, and put it on the plate, what if you instead had an investment strategy that was centered around trying to gather yourself the ingredients? So instead of like having a difficult time finding any property that will meet all your cash flow metrics, what if you could more easily find a deal that would give you, like a 5-pound bag of flour, right? In other words, equity. Like you can buy this house for $300,000, you can easily make it worth $400,000. Now you have equity. And the next deal, maybe it's kind of similar, but you can sell that one. Maybe it's kind of a flip and you extract some cash. And then the one after that, you're like, oh, there's really no equity or cash flow here at all, but this is the property I want to own. And someday, with the right debt structure and enough equity, this thing will cash flow because this is the type of property I want to have. And then the next deal you do, you buy an amazing block of debt. That's a more advanced topic. That's part of what I call supercharged seller financing. But just go with me. You're buying the ingredients. Now, you look at your plate of cookies and you're like, oh, I've been working at this for 2, 3, 4 years, and there's still no cookies on the plate. And that might feel frustrating. I'm looking at my portfolio and I'm still not seeing a bunch of cash flowing properties. But you know what you are getting? You're getting a ginormous stocked pantry, and your fridge is filling up. And suddenly, you don't have any cookies on the plate, but you have a lot of ingredients such that if you wanted to, you could overnight bake a tremendous batch of cookies, right? So now let's say you have 10, 15 properties, none of which cash flow more than just a tiny amount, and you're like, wow, this feels like a failure, but it's not, because you could choose to rearrange your portfolio. You could choose to sell a bunch of those, refinance some of those, 1031 exchange some of those, but you put all the ingredients together, and now you could very suddenly go from having no cookies to bake a batch of like 20, 30, 40 cookies at once. You could go from having a great portfolio of some great properties, but no cash flow, but tons of equity, tons of great debt that's flexible that you could move to other properties, and now suddenly you have the ability to go overnight from a large non-cash flowing portfolio to maybe a smaller but totally cash flowing portfolio, because now you've taken all the sugar and the eggs and the chocolate chips and the flour out of the pantry and out of the fridge, and you've suddenly baked yourself one big old batch of cookies. So why does this matter? First of all, I just don't want you to be discouraged if you can't find the cash flowing properties that you want right now. I think the problem would be if 5 years down the road, if your plate doesn't have any cookies, that by itself is not a problem. But if 5 years down the road, your plate doesn't have any cookies and your pantry or your fridge aren't any fuller, that's a problem. But if your pantry and your fridge are filling up with the ingredients you need to make a big old batch of awesome cookies by, your cash flowing portfolio, that's what counts. So as you're looking at deals, if you're feeling discouraged, like, oh, I can't find any cash flowing properties, that's okay. Maybe you don't need to buy cash flowing properties right now. Right now, you're trying to stock your fridge. You're trying to stock your pantry. So if you see a deal where you can make $100,000 of equity, through forced appreciation and using your entrepreneurship to add value, do it. It doesn't matter if it cash flows now. The point of that property isn't to cash flow. The point of that property is to put a big old bag of flour in your pantry so that when it comes time and you decide you're about to convert all your ingredients to cookies, convert all your ingredients to a sweet cash flowing portfolio. You're going to trade all your high equity, low cash flow properties for something that's a cash flowing portfolio. Then you can do that at will. All right. I hope that analogy works for you. I hope that analogy didn't make you hungry. If it did, go get some cookies, get a glass of milk, and get out there and start buying properties, even if they don't cash flow, if you get other awesome wins from them. All right, take care.